And welcome back. Olhausen and Brunswick pool tables. Bar stools of every type. In fact, the bar stools we use on this show have long come from Games and Things, where we initially got them. Octane and Palliser home theater seating. You can check their website for all their home theater seating options. Lisa and Scott Mellon have everything you could ever want for your man cave, your entertainment room. Check them out at Games and Things out in West Knoxville or ourgameroom.com. All right, once again, the SEC is going to play a 10-game conference schedule only, no outside the conference games, each team getting an open date, and then another open date before the SEC title game, so you have some leeway to move games, make up games, etc. The SEC is expected to keep its two divisions. And it's expected to keep the two teams that are already scheduled from the cross division on there. And the idea is, how do you add two more teams? Now, who knows what they could do? Technically, anything's still on the table. Mm-hmm. But if you play it that way, and you keep the 8 games that are already scheduled, and you add in 2 more, for a lot of people thought the easiest way would just be to add in the rotating opponents from 2021, 2022. That's LSU and Ole Miss if you're Tennessee. There was some blowback to that because some schools looked at it and said, wait a second, our next 2 opponents are really strong. Can't add that in there. So now there's talk, and apparently some of the momentum is moving toward basing those 2 new foes on strength of schedule. And just as a reminder, Tennessee picked the wrong year to move up in the standings last year, if that's the case, because you would figure you're going to get a little tougher schedule. And you see how Alabama, which you normally think is the team that nobody wants to face, well, technically they were only 3rd best in the SEC last year. So that doesn't help you, 3rd or 4th, depending on how you look at it. So when you're doing this, guys, how would you handle it? If I made you commissioner, Chuck, would you just do the rotation and tell everybody to shut up and like it?
Well,
or would you do it by strength of schedule?
We thought the rotation, I thought, well, yeah, why not just do that? But then like at Florida, I think their 2 next opponents, wouldn't it be Alabama and Texas A&M? Okay. If you already have a pretty tough schedule, you're thinking, now, wait a minute, I think you look at it, and John, with what you had there, you kind of break that in half, the SEC standings. And then based on how you finished last year, you play one team in the top half of that and one team in the bottom half of that. So I think you would give a little bit of a slack to the teams that finished in the bottom. I also would look and see, well, how long is it before you're going to be playing somebody else again in this rotation they have? If it's going to be a long time until you're going to be playing like a Texas A&M, maybe you do consider that. But I would break that in half. And you take one team from the top half becomes one opponent, one team from the bottom half becomes the other.
When we talked with Philip Form about this on Friday, he thought the fair way to do it would just be to play your next 2 rotating opponents. And in Tennessee's case, of course, that's Ole Miss and LSU. But he also said that Greg Sankey is considering that strength of schedule component. So what would that do? Chuck, to your point, I got a call from somebody at Tennessee last week that said they were hearing Texas A&M would be the team that they would add. And they weren't too thrilled with that because A&M is supposed to be pretty darn good. But if you pair that with Ole Miss, okay, then there's the sentiment toward going to Auburn. Auburn was a regular opponent on Tennessee's schedule from, 56 to 91? So you could revive that one. So maybe you played that one. There are a lot of different ways to go. There's a part of me that thinks the fairest way is to just take the 2 crossover opponents of the next 2 years. But if you do happen to face Alabama and A&M this year, that doesn't look too good for you. But I think the strength of schedule component's really hard to factor too. You can go what happened on last year, but do you think LSU is going to be as good this year as it was last year?
Right.
No.
Well,
so who projects that?
Yeah.
Right, and every year there's someone you project to be bad that's good and someone you project to be good that's bad. I mean,
yeah.
I personally, and I know that you're going to get complaints from 14 different fan bases complaining that the SEC is out to get them, and go to any Tennessee message board. It's already there that it's going to happen and we're going to get screwed by the league. So when it comes down, all 14 fan bases are going to cry. And again, I said this earlier in the show, I've said it for weeks, I'll say it again right now. Just take what you can get. I just want to see football.
Right.
The chances are, when you play Alabama, if you get that game in, neither team is going to be completely 100%. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So
right.
If it's me and I'm the SEC, I just do the next rotating opponents and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. It plays the same for everybody. And then starting next year, we'll just move 2 years ahead in the rotation. So everything stays the same. It's the easiest thing to do.
But there was more pushback to that, I think, than what they expected.
Oh, very much. Yes.
That's I think what really hurt that, and I thought that was the best way to go too. I mean, here's what you were going to have coming up anyway. We've just pushed it up a year.
Yeah, apparently Alabama's not happy with that because they would get Florida and Georgia and LSU all in the same year. Well, Tennessee does
You
that
know,
every year by having Alabama.
I kind of
Yeah,
like the
so-
idea of Alabama and Florida not being that happy about something. I'm going to vote for this, move it up, whatever's coming up next.
You know-
Alabama was unhappy about the open dates teams had before they played them a few years ago.
That's right. They did complain quite a bit about that, and that really sidetracked their seasons.
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
it?
it was awful.
They
The
suffered.
program
They
was so
suffered
bad.
greatly. All right, when we come back, I tell you what. This is the question. You know my feelings on this. We'll see if these guys agree. Is a 10-game schedule with 10 good games better than a 12-game schedule with only 8 or 9 good games? We'll debate that next. Come on back on the